The first thing we're going to do is create a folder structure for our assignment. So in order to do that, I'm going to right-click on the desktop, choose New Folder, rename the folder. It's going to be your last name underscore VCD 1015 underscore 01 because this is lesson 1. We're going to double click on this folder to open up the window so we see what's inside the folder. Right now there's nothing in there, and I'm on the list view. Right click, New Folder, change the name to your last name underscore Excel, make another folder, last name underscore PowerPoint, make a new folder, last name underscore Word. So that's our file structure. We're going to save our Excel spreadsheet inside the Excel folder along with an image of the chart that we make. We're going to save our PowerPoint inside the PowerPoint folder, and we're going to save our Word flyer inside of the Word folder. We're going to start with the Excel document. Okay, so what you're going to want to do now is to open up Microsoft Excel. And I have Excel in my dock. If you don't have Excel in your dock, you can go to the Spotlight and search for Excel. I happen to have 2 versions installed in my computer. I've got 2011 and I've got 2016. I would click on the 2016 one or double click it, and it'll open right up. Click on Blank Workbook, Create. What we have is a spreadsheet with lettered columns and numbered rows. Each one of these intersections between the rows and the columns is called a cell, and the cell address is the combination of the letter and number that the cell happens to be intersecting with. So this particular cell that's selected now is cell B1. If I select a random cell over here, it's I13. So we're going to start out in the first row. Go to cell B1 and just type in north. We're creating some data, a table with some data in it. This is the header area. Hit tab to go to the next cell, tab to go to the next cell. Okay, so we have north, northwest region, east, and south. We need to do a little bit of formatting because in cell C1 you can see that northwest region is getting cut off. It doesn't quite fit in the cell. So what we want to do is choose wrap text, and I could wrap text just for this individual cell by selecting it and choosing wrap text. If I Command Z to undo and click on the cell number, I select the entire row and then I can choose wrap text. That's really the only, C1 is really the only cell that needed to be wrapped, but just in case it's formatted it for this entire row, just in case we would need to do that again. Okay, we're also going to align the text to center. We're going to bold it, and then we are going to go to cell A2 and type in some months. So I'll start with January. Select the down arrow on your keyboard to go to the next cell in the column. Type in February, March, and then total using all caps. To format this column, we want to make these bold, so I'll click on the column header, which is A, to select the entire column, and choose bold. Next, we need to type in some data. So in cell B1, double click to show your cursor and just go ahead and type in the number 6,000. And then go ahead and continue following the example in Blackboard. All right, now that we have the data in our columns for our months, we need to do a little bit of formatting because this is actually showing dollar amounts, and we're going to automatically format that so that it shows up in US dollars with the dollar sign and a decimal point. So if I select my rows and I choose this dollar sign up in the menu, in the home menu, it will automatically format my numbers correctly. Next thing we need to do is put some numbers in the total row. We're not just going to go ahead and type in the total manually, but we're going to use a feature called AutoSum, which will allow Excel to automatically add these for you. So I'm going to click to create a total for the first column. I'm going to click and drag from the first cell to the last and go ahead and choose AutoSum. Just click on it and it will automatically give me a total. We're going to go ahead and format this to be bold. So click on the number 5 in the row and choose bold. Now when we do that, you'll notice that the first number in the totals column looks like a series of hashtags, and that's not an error. The reason that that's happening is it's just an indication that now that we made the text bold, it's not all going to fit inside of the cell. It's a little bit too narrow. So what we need to do is make the cell, resize it so that it fits correctly. So we're going to go ahead to the cell size button, and in the drop-down menu choose auto fit column width, and Excel will automatically widen the column to fit. Now we have a little problem over here, but you can also manually change the width of the column. So we want all of our data to show completely. We don't want anything cut off. So just in order to manually resize a column, you would hover your mouse up inside this header area. You could do it either with the width or the height. So if I want to change the width of this first column, column A, I hover my mouse between the A and the B right on that division line, and my cursor changes to indicate that I can move that in either direction. I'm going to click and drag, and you can see that I can, really, to exaggerate, I can make this really wide, but I'm going to go ahead and narrow it. So again, what we want is for all of the data to show. Nothing should be cut off, nothing should be obscured. We want it to be really easy to read. What we're going to do next is go down to row 22 and click and drag across the first 3 cells. We're going to type our first and last name in this area, but we want this we want our first and last name to go across this entire area to be centered here. So in order to do that, we need to merge our cells together so it makes one wider cell. So what we can do is go to Merge and Center, and we have some options here in the drop-down menu. If we were just to click on this button, though, that's what we want to do. So what it does is it merges or joins the selected cells together, and then when we start typing, the text will be automatically centered. Now, if you're working in a different version of Excel, your menu options may be slightly different or in a slightly different place, but they should all be there. Everything that we're using should be available in an older version of Excel, so you might just have to look around a little bit and experiment. But we want to make sure that our information here is formatted as in the example in Blackboard. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in my first and last name. So that's what you want to do. Type in your first and last name. And we have an area here that we can fit a visual chart. We're going to turn our data into a bar graph. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click and drag to select all the data in my table, including the headers, and then choose the Insert tab up here in the ribbon. So this green area is called the ribbon, and each each Office product has a ribbon. Excel's is green, Word is blue, and PowerPoint's is kind of a dark orange. We're going to go to the column chart button and click on the drop down arrow and choose the clustered column format. And Excel will automatically create a chart out of our data. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this chart. Again, I am looking at the example in Blackboard, and you should also do the same. But the example in Blackboard has the chart aligned right to the edge right here. It also should be sized so that it fits within the right-hand edge of the E column. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and click and drag the node on the lower right corner to resize the chart. But when I do that, my chart gets all distorted. So what we need to do is hold the Shift key down to click and drag in that corner to resize the chart proportionally. I might need to zoom in because I'm really working in just this little area. So if I zoom in, down here there's a plus minus slider which allows me to magnify, increase or decrease the magnification of my screen. So I'm zooming in a little bit so I can see better what I'm doing. We need to do a little bit of formatting here. It's sort of plain. So I'll just start by replacing this generic chart title with the title practice chart in all caps. And if I click on it 3 times and go back to home, I have my text formatting menu. I'm going to go ahead and make it bold. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger. So right now it's at 14 points. Let's make it 18 points. I'm also going to change the format of my background. So if when I hover over that, you see it's called chart area. If I double click on that, I get some options here. So I can change the fill, change the color of the fill. I'll go ahead and click on this button here, fill color, and choose a light colored green. Now you can make yours a different color, but make sure it's a very light color, light green, light blue, something like that. Something in this range up here, this upper range of light colors, because it's really important to make sure that your information is readable, and you do not want to have a dark background with dark text, or you don't want it to be too close to these colored bars so they're hard to see. So my recommendation is just to use a very light background color, so that your information is readable. We're also going to use a border. So we've got some border options here. Just choose black, and let's make it, the width is the width of the border stroke is 0.75. Let's make it like make it 3 point. So you have a fairly actually that's a little bit too thick. So let's go back. Let's just make it 1 point. Okay, so you need to have a black border and a background color chosen. I'm also going to I want to change the location of this key or legend. Right now it's at the bottom, but I would think it would be easier to read in a column format. So I'm going to go ahead and choose right for the legend position, and it automatically reformats the chart so that everything fits correctly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the plot area, and what I'd like to do is to format these grid lines. I want the grid lines to go from dark to light, darker at the top, lighter at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and click on one of the grid lines, right click, choose Format Grid Lines, choose Gradient Line, and I don't want, so we have it going from white at the top to kind of a lighter blue here, and there's a couple of intermediate colors. What I'd like to do is make it go from light to dark, but I don't want it to go all the way to white. So I'm going to click and drag to get rid of that white tab. And move these over. And you can see I have a gentle gradient here. I'm going to change the direction of the gradient as well. I'm going to be dark at the top, lighter at the bottom. I don't need these different steps, so I'm going to drag this other step out so I have one at this one at either end. Okay, so if I'm going to make this a little bit lighter, I just don't want it to be white, so that I have a more well-defined gradient. Okay. Next thing I'd like to do is add some labels. So we've got a dollar amount here, and we've got the regions here, and I want to label that. So I'm going to select my chart area. Now sometimes with Excel, it's a little bit hard to tell exactly where you are. See, if I hover over this, it says plot area. If I hover over the grid line, it tells me I'm hovering over one of the grid lines. So I want plot area, and if I click on that, I can select it. If I shift click, I'm resizing it a bit. Okay, and I'm going to move it over. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make some room at the bottom for a label that will say region, and some room at the side for a label that will say amount. Okay. All right, click off of that. Now what I'm going to do is insert a text box. So go to the Insert tab, go to check text box, click on that. Your cursor will change to a little icon. To create a text box, just go ahead and click and drag, and then start typing. So I'm going to type region in all caps. Click on it, start formatting it. It should be bold, could be a little bit smaller. I'm going to make it centered, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag to about the center. Okay, now I need one that says amount, so I'm going to Command C, Command V. When I do that, I get a copy of my text box, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate it and drag it into position, and then click on the inside to type amount. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to something that looks good. I'm going to also change the options. I want some gradient on these color bars, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so when I do that, the color automatically changes. So let's see what color we're on. Or I see we're on a kind of a gold color, so I'm going to click Gradient Fill, choose the direction, go ahead and choose the fill. Oh, I see. Okay. All right, so I'm going to experiment a little bit here. I only need these are different steps in a gradient, so as you shift these around, you can see the gradient will change depending on the color inside of the step. To get rid of any extra steps, I really only need two. I need a light and a dark, and then there will be a smooth automatic gradient from light to dark in between. So these extra ones, I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag so they disappear. And to change the direction of the gradient, I can drag these so that they reverse themselves. Okay, so it's starting to look like something. And okay, so I want this to, if I take a look at what I've got here, I've got it going from a darker color to a white, but the white, what I really want, the effect that I want is I want this bar, this colored bar, to look like it's fading into the background. So I'm going to go back to the fill and select the step that's the lightest at the end. So mine is white, and then push the transparency all the way to 0. So I have this effect that the color is fading to transparent, and now what it looks like is that it's getting transparent too quickly. So I'm going to go back to fill, and I'm going to move my tab here, or my step, over so that the gradient starts a little bit farther down the bar and I've got more color. And now I have something that looks a little bit better. All right, so that's something that you can experiment with. I'm going to go ahead and do the other ones. Okay, so now that I have all of my colored bars formatted with the gradient, I'm going to go ahead and just do some adjustment with the width of the bars and the gaps in between them. I don't want these gaps here, and maybe I want the bars to be a little bit wider. So if I click on one of the bars, I get a series option, and I've got a couple of sliders that I could play with. So series overlap will make the gap wider or less. I can even overlap these, and that's not an effect that I want. I could just go ahead and type in 0 so that I have no space between. Okay, so the last thing that we want to do with this is to just format this type, just make it bold. So just click on the area of type to select the entire box and just choose bold. And right now we've got a chart that looks pretty, I'd say it looks pretty decent. It's easy to read, it's clear. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save our workbook sheet. We should have done that at the very beginning. It's always good practice to save your work right away in case there's a power outage or computer crashes or something happens like that. So go to File, Save As, go ahead and type in your last name, underscore, well, in this case, your last name space Excel worksheet. And I've already navigated to my project folder. So I had a project folder that assignment folder that I saved onto my desktop. Double click that, double click the Excel folder inside of that, and then go ahead and once you create your worksheet name, go ahead and hit save. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and save our bar chart as an image that we could bring into a web page, or we could bring into a PowerPoint or some sort of a Word document or something else. So now we're going to go ahead and save our bar chart as an image, something that we could bring into a web page, we could bring into a PowerPoint presentation, we could bring into a Word document. So I'm going to hover over the area of my chart, right click, choose Save Picture As, go to the desktop. That's where I saved my assignment folder. Yours might be in a different spot. In fact, you probably want to save yours onto a removable hard drive or flash drive. Double click your assignment folder, double click the Excel folder. You should already have your worksheet saved inside of there, and rename your image to your last name Excel chart. Should already be a .png. The type is PNG. We've got different options here, so we want to leave it, and go ahead and hit save. Now when I go to my desktop and I see my assignment folder, if I double click, I open up, I see the 3 folders that I created, and then inside the Excel folder is my chart image and my Excel worksheet.